Hello everyone, this is the Maverick, and if you thought that the communists were mad at me for my past few videos, the communists are going to be seething at this one. This is my video on why the income tax is theft. My general rule of law for taxation is it is not entirely immoral at every case if you choose to do something and there is a tax placed upon that. That is why I think the income tax is theft, because the income tax takes a percentage of everything that you earn and then just, there we go. To me, however, I don't think the payroll tax is theft, even though at some income levels it might be immoral. But I believe that if we just had a payroll tax and abolished the income tax, the payroll tax would essentially be a tax on labor. And we are able to labor because we live in a civilized area in which we have laws, and because those laws need to be upheld, and people generally can't just follow them themselves all the time without knowing that they are there, the government sometimes needs to collect revenues to uphold itself, common defense, everything like that. But the income tax, guys, I'm going to give you a little bit of a history lesson and explain to you why exactly the income tax is unconstitutional and extremely stupid if you think about it. I'm not saying other forms of taxes are necessarily good. In fact, economically, every other tax except for a land value tax is unequal in nature, which, makes it not very good. Sales taxes drive up prices, so do VAT taxes, and something like an estate tax is basically saying that your relative that you chose to pass this on to can't have your money, even when you wanted them to. I believe that's immoral, but it's technically still upheld in my, thinking. But let's get down to it. A little bit of a history lesson on American taxes. If you remember from your civics class, Americans are not happy campers with taxes at all. Even when they have representation for people, they're imposing the taxes. Alexander Hamilton, in an effort to pay down the war debts, which were massive, said we should put an excise tax on whiskey of gallons of whiskey above a certain proof. The people rioted. The people were basically ready to take up their firearms, which by the Second Amendment they can keep, and basically host a coup against the bureaucracy. And that was not going to happen. So the whiskey war happened, and we kind of just got on with our lives, really. But Americans, until recently, have not liked taxes. We still don't. We're still kind of keeping ahead of the curve for not liking taxes, but not a lot. There are several countries that are doing much more libertarian things than the US is. But until like 1913, there wasn't an income tax. And then William Howard Taft imposed the 16th Amendment with the help of Congress and said that now the government can tax your income whenever it wants. The Constitution, and I will leave a link in the description for where you can find this, but in the Constitution, it forbids direct taxes. That's a tax from the government onto you, pretty much without your consent. My theory here, and that is direct tax. It says they can impose taxes, but they can't be direct, which means the income tax is unconstitutional. But wait, there's a loophole. It also says it's not unconstitutional if it's enumerated according to the proportion of the census, which would mean something along the lines of you have a tax rate based on your population. I can hear Californians screaming. Let's say that we based the income tax, it's a flat rate, because otherwise it wouldn't be enumerated to the census. It's the number of electoral votes you have divided by 2, and that's the flat rate that everybody of every income level pays in that state. Iowans pay 1.5%, Alaskans pay 1.5%, I think Hawaii pays like 2%, Texans pay 17%, Californians pay like, let's see, 27.5%, sorry, brain dead. But still, I can hear the East Coast and the West Coast, huge states, screaming their lungs out, going, "What? You expect us to do that and you get by with a freebie?" Yeah, no, it's not a good thing. Keep that away, please. Then we got continuously more socialist after the Great Depression, because good ol' FDR decided to like quadruple or more the size of the government, and almost never, except for like that drop in the 1980s, has the US ever stopped being a large government, huge government state. That needs to stop, and it needs to start stopping with this next slide. Another one of my heroes is Ron Paul, and he has got some fantastic ideas. He's one of my intellectual mentors. I love this guy. He says, what we really need to do is repeal 1913. That way, we could get rid of the income tax and the Federal Reserve at the same time. Ron Paul. Okay, this guy doesn't like the Federal Reserve because it manipulates the money supply, which he doesn't think is a good thing. And personally, I don't either. What both of us agree on is that if we were able to find a way to make the free market naturally produce credit, like almost a way of the multiplier effect, not, in which you take a certain amount of credit, basically an IOU, a bank takes that and basically creates the credit, redistributes the wealth, and it creates more credit and more credit and more credit. And you don't have an artificial credit supply, you have a credit supply that was made through voluntary transactions. That doesn't create inflation. It might create like a little bit, it might make prices go up, but that's natural. Instead of creating like this bloated money supply, we now would have a voluntary credit system, which would morph itself basically into a currency. And when he's talking about getting rid of the income tax, that's the same thing I'm talking about. Why can't you keep what you earn? Hard work. Because the income tax is more than the payroll tax. And I support a very low payroll tax. I would think that if you're making below a certain amount, you should not have to pay a payroll tax, because if you're struggling to make ends meet, we should not be taxing that income that's making you struggle. That's where we can help eradicate the welfare state. People can work and earn a living wage if we stop taxing everything they earn. All right. I'll cover more of this later. Heck, I could give economic data if you guys want on all of this. But think about it this way. Taxation is theft unless you automatically agree to it. And if it is immoral, then I don't think it should be there. That's why I don't like the estate tax. I don't like the inheritance tax. I don't like payroll tax for below certain payment amounts, Just, I want to help people make ends meet, but I want them to help themselves to do it. I don't want the government basically holding a gun to my head, the taxation is theft thing, because that's a thing you can do. They will say, pay us this, you don't, you get a few letters, then if you still don't pay up, which would actually at that point be more than before, they will lock you up until you pay what you have to by their prescription. That is stealing. That is immoral. Why do you want to tax somebody at all who can't afford to feed themselves or their kids? How is this okay? So that's what I want you to think about. Why is it okay to take money from anybody, especially if they're poor, and even if they're rich? Because if they're rich, I'm assuming they either struck it lucky with an investment that they made, or something that was given to them, and who cares if it's given to them, because it was voluntary on the other person's part, and I don't think we should be judging people for that. But why do we have the right to take somebody else's money? Why is that okay? Wouldn't it be more humanitarian to let them keep their money and dig themselves out of poverty? I'll let you think about that. This is the Maverick signing off, and get learning.